I've got a question for those among us who fancy ourselves leaders in the conversation around spirituality or consciousness. This idea that seems to circulate with some kind of regularity, if not regularity, frequency. Like, I don't know how often, but it seems to pop up every once in a while, this idea around is the end of the world coming? Like, not to put too fine a point on it, but that's the piece that seems to be like, there's always a prediction that something in the next 24 months, 36 months is going to be drastic, and there's going to be a culling of some kind. And I'm not saying that that's not going to happen. And I'm not saying that I know what is going to happen. It just seems to me that we, as humans, pretty consistently create the shit we predict. And so my invitation is all this conversation that's going on around, in the next couple of years there's going to be a big upheaval and systems are going to collapse, and some systems need to collapse. I get it. I'm totally on board with that. Does it have to be catastrophic? Can we, with consciousness, awareness, intentionality, and kindness, compassion, and love, create the change we're talking about when we talk about all this catastrophe that's coming? And so my invitation is, if you lead a conversation, if you're a leader of leaders, then start using your language like you understand the power that it has. Start using your language like you understand that every word creates a world, and that when you're talking about catastrophe, you're creating that. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be prepared for the grid to go down, and you shouldn't have rations at home, and you shouldn't be prepared for a 3-day power failure. Of course you should be prepared for all that stuff, because you're taking care of your family. That makes sense. At the same time, and those are just examples, like, you don't have to take those literally, but you might, and that's fine. I got nothing on that. I got nothing on being prepared for the eventualities of the human condition. But my invitation at the same time is to be aware and mindful that when you speak about catastrophe, I think I remember learning this in college, studying the letters and theology of Paul. I think it was Paul who said, "That which ye fear greatly shall come to pass." It may not have been Paul, but it's like, if we fear it and we feed that fear with the language of catastrophe, we'll create it. We're good at creating stuff. And my invitation is, if we want change, and if we want drastic change, if we want revolutionary change, that we create that change with intentionality, with love, with compassion, with connection, with community, with intimacy, with intelligence, intentionality. And so when you're creating worlds anyway with your words, do it with love, do it with compassion. Lead the conversations you're here to lead with that kind of intentionality, and leave the catastrophe to someone else. In fact, if you hear someone catastrophizing, say, "Hey, pump the brakes a little bit, man. Let's do that with love, compassion, and connection." Because if we lead that conversation, then more leaders will lead that conversation. And when more leaders lead that conversation, the change that we need and desire, even the drastic change or the revolutionary change or the profound change that we desire, that actually we might even need, can happen with our participation, can happen with our consent, with our sovereignty, and we can keep our sovereignty intact. And so, yes, things need to change. Our economic systems have to be seriously evaluated and adjusted to make room for how can the really those among us who do really well. There are some people who are really smart. They're very effective. They create good stuff in the world, and they're richly rewarded for it. Good, good, good. That's excellent. And there are those among us who have a harder time with it. Do we really need to stand on ceremony that I created this and I deserve that, and if you can't create it, that's your problem? Really? Is that the story we're going to stick to? What about compassion? What about care and concern for those among us who have a harder time with life? I was one of those kids when I was a kid. I had a harder time learning. I had a harder time adjusting. I had a harder time. It took me longer to get certain ideas. That's why I'm so passionate about making complicated ideas simple, like why we're here on the planet. So we need to change our economic systems. We need to change the way wealth is distributed and take how we take care of people who have a harder time taking care of themselves. I believe that. I really do. At the same time, people who are smart and do really good things, yeah, they should be richly rewarded. And then the other piece is, what are we doing with the people who are sick and ill? Are we really letting them to fend for themselves? Because what if that was you or I? Wouldn't we want a healthcare system that took care of us? What about teaching the kids the fundamentals of life, how to handle themselves, how to create a life for themselves, how to feed themselves and care for themselves and express themselves so they can find their true gifts, they can find their voice and speak it into the world? I'm just scratching the surface. I don't have all the answers, not even close. But I do know that if we keep talking about catastrophe, we'll create catastrophe. But if we talk about change and love and connection and kindness and compassion, we'll create those changes in a way that doesn't have to be catastrophic. Think about it.